Hi everybody, Sean Caleb's along with my new best friend Zhao Yuan as we continue our adventure on New China. We have left the city of Dali here in Henan Province in our rear view mirror, and we are now heading toward Sichuan. But once we left Dali, we're keeping with our trend of picking up something in every area we went. We got this book. It is called Tales of Dali. With it comes a wonderful postcard, and just look at the wonderful watercolor. It is by a gentleman we interviewed yesterday.
His name is Jason Pym, and he's a British illustrator who has been living in the city of Dali for the past 15 years.
And that's going to go right here on our table next to the flowers we got in blooming. Okay, now at the hand at day, what we're going to be talking about today, as we get down in this rural area, so you can see how difficult it is to reach this part of the province, and really poverty has characterized this for a long time. They had very difficult times in the past getting fruits and vegetables into this region. The road we're driving on now is not nearly as sophisticated as the one we've been traveling. We're not seeing the high bridges, the high-speed rail, the wide highways. This is much more difficult driving, but look at the outside the window, the wonderful geography that we're passing there. But things have changed, Taiyuan. They're making much more progress.
Definitely. Well, this place still relies heavily on agriculture, but in the past, without the good roads and highways, it was impossible to ship the fruit and vegetable to the outside world. But right now, with the newly built roads, things are certainly changing. And we're going to be talking about agriculture today because it's almost harvest season again. Yeah. And joining us again is our wonderful Mr. Victor Gao and Mr. Panzhihua. And by the way, today is actually Midautumn Festival. So I wish the four of us, let's wish our audience and everyone watching out there a happy Midautumn Festival. So, Mr. Gao, let me start with you. We talked about connectivity being an important factor driving the growth of this region. How important is that to you?
Well, we are on the way to Sichuan, and I understand we will stay for several hours in Panzhihua, the big onion city over there. And Panzhihua and its surrounding areas traditionally have been the southern gate from Sichuan to Yunnan, and through Yunnan to Southeast Asia, for example. So it's a very important passageway as far as Sichuan is concerned. And this area where we are driving through is a very difficult area. I would rather not call it landlocked. It's mountain-locked. Yes. It's one mountain after another. Fortunately, this road we are on, which is not the most sophisticated, most modernized version, this is the traditional way of the highways in China. They are kind of on the top of the mountains, so we have bird's eye view of the plain area surrounding us. So between big mountains, you do have patches of plains, and agriculture has traditionally been more difficult because it's smaller scale, family-based, for example, but eventually, with greater connectivity, they can sell their goods further away at a higher premium, and hopefully this will generate more wealth for the farmers here.
And Mr. Chen, one thing we have seen, the small family farms, is that really what is going to characterize this area?
Yeah, currently, yes, because of the terrain. I mean, if you look at the terrain here, it's full filled with mountains, little hills. You can't really have large modern agriculture like what we are having in coastal areas, like in the United States. You can't really do that. Machines won't apply in this place. So that's really the difficulty that has made this place stuck with poverty in the past few hundred years. So, yeah, that's what's going on.
Wonderful.
Wow. So, that's that. We certainly have a lot more grounds to cover because technology is also transforming agriculture in this area and in some of the other areas across China. But right now, I think we're running out of time. Let's go to our wonderful colleagues Erica and Huiao from the northeast route of this adventure. All right, and welcome back to New China, celebrating 70 years of the founding of the People's Republic of China. I'm Erica Pizzi, alongside my amazing co-host,
Huiao.
Yeah, that's his name.
I said it wrong, did I?
Did you say your name right? I worked on your name for a long time when I first came
so
here.
So did Jeff.
Huiao. Okay, cool. So where are we? If you can see along the route here, we are in technically the city of Harbin, which
Yes.
has been treating us so well.
So well. I
Oh
mean,
my
the ice
goodness.
cream, the sausage, but not just that, but the whole charm, with the Central
Absolutely.
Street.
And
Oh my
honestly,
God.
the center of the city was so amazing. We are now a few hours outside of that, a few hours east, headed toward Wuchang,
Wuchang?
which is still technically the city of Harbin. But now you can see we are in the countryside. This is becoming much, much more rural.
Right. You can see the beautiful scenery we were getting, even though
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
gorgeous.
like the most sunny day out here, but you can feel, we're getting pastoral here, or
Yes.
idyllic.
Yes, I like
but this
that.
is actually, to be exact, this is the Heilongjiang's Wuchang Modern Agricultural Industrial Zones, and it is one of the 11th listed by the central government, and it covers an area of about 400,000 mu. So you can see it's quite vast land.
And
out here.
this has been dubbed the capital city of China's highest quality rice.
I don't know why it is, but I heard it's really good. I don't think I've had it myself in my life.
Yes, but haven't you already gotten a text from your dad asking you to bring
oh
some
my
back?
God. My dad is traveling. At the moment he knows I'm in Wuchang, he says, give them the address, buy some rice. And this
Send
is
me
just
some
how
rice.
good it is. Oh my God.
So we're talking rice.
We're talking about rice.
Let's
yeah.
bring in our amazing guests that
Why
have been
not,
with
yo?
us this whole way, Li Young and Einar Tangen. Hello, guys.
Hello.
早上好. So let's talk rice.
Right.
I mean, look, it's an important part. This is a huge
Yeah.
staple for the whole country here.
right.
But Liang, why is this area known for its amazing rice?
Basically, in northeastern China, particularly in Heilongjiang, we don't really have a lot of rice fields. But for many years, this is the only area in Heilongjiang that rice can be grown, and the quality of the rice is directly associated with the black soil,
Right.
which is about above 1 meter thick. And that gives special nutrition. Of course, there are other elements. This area is surrounded by mountain, and the water quality is different. And then, they are able to produce. And of course, the seas are so different, and they are able to grow. I would like to say the best rice in China.
But in order to grow that, you need all sorts of favorable conditions, right? So not just the black
Exactly.
soil. Apparently,
Yeah.
there's also going to
Water.
be water
And
big
it's-
temperature difference.
Yeah.
Right, and so the
Temperature.
temperature difference. I was reading that the low temperature already acts as a natural disinfectant or some sort of it keeps the rice from being disease free, the soil from being disease free.
Yes, one of the contributing factors.
And
right, yes.
irrigation water, pollution free, so
Right.
that's helpful, obviously. Einar, you weigh in here. Have you ever had Wuchang rice?
Yes, I have.
Tell me about it. Tell me about your experience.
It's short grain rice. Okay, so this is not the long grain rice or the basmati rice that you have is famous in India, and it's highly prized because especially in China they like the stickier rice,
Right.
smaller grain. It goes very well with the food. Last night we had a terrific Russian meal which combined the best of Russian techniques, but with the rice itself was just I don't think it was Wuchang, but it was that just short grain rice.
So you're saying it has this soft texture
And it's sweet.
Sweet.
and sweet.
Sweet.
So it has flavorings.
Yes, it's not a sweet like a candy sweet.
No.
It's a
Right.
very faint,
Subtle.
very subtle. So if you like eating rice and you like short grain, this is the ultimate.
Are you a rice fan? Or a noodle
yes,
person?
of course. Well, I love. Look, I love
He's
it
doing
all.
rice versus noodle.
I'm doing it.
You can't do that. This is a north-south.
The boy from
thing.
Shanghai.
You
Yeah,
can't,
yeah,
you
the man
can't,
from-
you can't get into that area because in each, every place in China has its quote staple food,
Right.
their mains food, and rice in some areas, noodles in other areas. What I appreciate is the incredible culture of food in China, which is so different. There's no such thing as Chinese food. There's a million types of Chinese
right.
food, but it's not one.
But considering we were embarking on this 12-day journey and celebrating the 70th anniversary of founding of the PRC, why is Wuchang important? We were in Inner Mongolia, now we're in Heilongjiang. We're gonna head to Jilin Province. So why is Wuchang important?
Yeah, like the big picture here.
Well, yeah, there's some issues. I mean, look, the Northeast has trailed. At first, they were the pioneer of China's economy, heavy industry, all the things necessary to set up these factories and things like that, power plants, all the things like aviation, big industry, big state-owned enterprises. But then as things changed, it became the Rust Belt. So what we're looking at right now with this rice is something that is going to continue forever. It's a brand. Everybody knows this brand in China. And they say, as your father said, give me some.
Give me some.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of the economics of it, I mean, because this area was once a vast area that was underpopulated, there were only a few people up here. After the founding of the Republic, they discovered exactly what you're talking about, this black earth belt. Not only in this area, but even going up to Qiqihar. So a lot of the disbanded military were sent up to the north to tame this wilderness and make it into a breadbasket for China. Very, very important during its early stages.
That's okay. So let's give people okay. Leo,
But
go ahead.
you know, the amount of production. I mean, the Wuchang rice output, you know, is not really very big. I think it is not really associated with the you know, the food supply, but it is a kind of I think it is an agricultural heritage. It is something that the local people, Harbin people like me, we take a lot of pride in it, and it is really one of the best in China. I think it is also some kind of a symbol of agricultural products of China.
And it's
So,
not just rice, right?
you know, I mean, in this particular, when you ask why, you know, Wuchang rice is important, I think it is important in, you know, in the sense that I talked about.
For the identity
For
of the area,
identity.
sure.
And they are well known. I think, you know, there are few species of rice that can be sold outside the country and get seriously certified by EU, for example. And the rice, you know, there are a piece of land that has been certified by EU, and you know, solely provide, you know, for the consumers in EU, and they are incredibly expensive. You know, just like
It doubles the price as
nearly 65 RMB per half a kilo.
Okay, so I don't. What context on that?
$10 for half a kilo.
Right.
That's a lot. That means a pound, basically.
Right. It's very expensive. You know, it is really organic.
And is
Really organic. And the Europeans, you know, they send their expert over and test the ground and make sure that, you know, it's free from any.
as you're saying, this is a specialty good, essentially what
Yes.
you're saying here.
And the rice is now cooked in the Italian risotto, I guess.
No, that would be a longer grain.
Longer grain,
Yeah.
okay.
But
To give people also a sense more of Wuchang, I mean, yes, it's part of Harbin. We were looking at population size. You know, Harbin, 10 million. Wuchang, 1 million. I mean,
Yes.
it's considerably smaller.
It's a
here.
county level city under Harbin.
well, you know, one of the things people might wonder about is how this is part of Harbin. Now, when we think of cities in Europe and America, we think of a very compact, cosmopolitan area. But in China, there are districts. Cities will have multiple cities in it. So you have the main city, and then you'll have lesser cities, and going down to villages. So it's a huge geographical area that represent it, but it's divided up to cities, and then you go to provinces. And
So
like
I have a question about this. We're focusing on rice production here. Let's see, a couple of statistics I want to throw out there. 500 rice processing farms around here. 500.
500.
I think there's something like 8 grain business parks or something like that. I mean, we're talking about a pretty substantial I don't know, job production area. I mean, do most of the folks that live in this area work in the rice industry? Yeah.
Well, increasingly, though, it's going the way of everything else. They're using high-tech machinery and things like that, and they're using more husbandry techniques.
Automation.
The soil is perfect, and as you pointed out, because they do have the winter frost, what it does is it gets rid of certain types of conditions that you might have in the south because of it doesn't
Natural
get that cold.
pesticide.
It's a natural. It just kills everything. So they have that, but they're continuing to use more advanced techniques, not pesticides, because they're very interested in keeping it totally organic.
No, natural pesticide, I was
And
saying.
they also
it's the temperature.
they also put some raised ducks in the rice field, and that is also a kind of an organic way of killing, you know.
That's also modern
worms.
agricultural.
Yeah, very natural. Whatever pests, you know, they The ducks
oysters
will take care of.
Ducks
will
don't
take
eat
care of
worms.
them.
They eat the weeds.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what they do is they naturally fertilize these areas.
Right.
But
Oh, wow.
in the wintertime, the fertilizer dies and
the
then it's
frogs.
reborn.
There is
Frogs.
reports that it is reported 800 tons of Wuchang rice is produced annually, but the number being sold is actually larger because there's this, fake Wuchang rice thing going on. I don't know, gentlemen, like.
Well, I mean,
There's a black market for everything.
But let's see what's happening now. The government is very concerned about this, and so are the growers here. And they have instituted their own crackdown. They're going to the IP courts and say, listen, we're not having this.
Yeah.
You cannot have a big national brand. Now remember, they have the same issue with Moutai. 100,000 cases are, 100,000 whatever are done and 500,000 are sold. But that has decreased sharply under the current administration. They are really taking it. The IP courts are not there just for foreigners who are complaining.
Yeah,
Within
right,
China,
exactly.
this is the big issue.
And this supply has always been limited. When I was a little kid, I heard about this rice, but I've never been able to get the chance to taste it.
Right.
This is your chance.
This is going to be my chance.
Today's
And
the
what
day.
I'm saying, with the improvement of the technology, the permo yield, or they have maximized, the area that they can grow this kind of. But still, there's limitation.
So on one hand, it's
we just have 2.2 million mu
right.
of area that can grow this kind of quality and this kind of a Wuchang rice, or rice that can be called the Wuchang rice.
So it's on one hand, it's the
So 1 mu is an equivalent of 0.067 hectare.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to give our viewers
Like a sense of how
big it,
how big or even how small.
1 mu, how small
it
the
is.
mu.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but it's not just rice here. There's wheat, there's corn, there's
Right, there are
a
all
whole
sorts
bunch
of
of things. Yeah.
crops. So on one hand, it's modern agricultural, it's new methods being used, and on the other hand, it's about the protection of IP. Before we wrap up, I think we should let our audience know more about this greater area called the Great Northern Wilderness.
Yes. Tell us all about it.
Well, I think my package will explain more details to our viewers. So.
Let's go to Sui White House story.
Great Northern Wilderness, known as Beidahuang in Chinese. It refers to the extreme northeastern parts of China, the fertile plains surrounded by 3 rivers, Heilongjiang, Songhua, and Ashui rivers. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, hundreds of thousands of youngsters have been sent here in the nation's pursuit of agricultural modernity and national food security. The Great Northern Wilderness once held China's largest concentration of freshwater wetlands and has become home to China's largest cluster of state farms, which can now feed nearly 10% of the Chinese population. From frontier wasteland to a state granary, to a popular brand of organic foods, and finally to a national model for agricultural development, Beidahuang's wilderness illustrates the trajectory of China's quest for food security. And with the unprecedented scale of urbanization, many of China's traditional grain-producing bases have encountered a rural labor shortage, as many young laborers have left for city jobs. Smart farming by big agricultural conglomerates has been eyed to tackle the rural labor shortage, while realizing agricultural modernization. 楚伟啊 CGTN。
Do you understand what he's saying?
EU-US.
It's a defined geographical area. Only rice from the geographical area qualifies.
And part of the intellectual property protection.
Well, we know something about the Great Wilderness, Great Northern Wilderness, Beidahuang.
And hopefully, very soon, we'll be able to taste this amazing, famous,
flagrant rice.
and nationally protected rice from this region. Wuchang rice coming soon to our mouths. Yes.
Yep. In about an hour or so.
All right, let's go now to our other co-anchors, Jean Caleb's and Tao Yuan, who are riding along the southwest route. What you got for us, guys?
In 70 years, China has undergone unprecedented transformation. From its old industrial base in the northeast, to its new manufacturing powerhouse in the southeast, and to its emerging southwest, CGTN offers you a panoramic view of contemporary China. Our crews will travel along 3 different routes and come to you live from dozens of locations and 3 mobile studios. Join us for an all-inclusive look at China on our TV channel and digital platforms, September the 9th to the 20th. It is New China, then and now, in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, only on CGTN.
Back in our bus, and we have some news for you. We have entered Sichuan Province. So this is our goal for the day. We're going to be stopping shortly. We'll tell you about that in just a bit. Once again, bringing you all this adventure on our new China trip. And it really is amazing to see the diversity of this nation, the images from the northeast, the images from the southeast as well, the economic powerhouse of this nation. And here where we are, just look at this terrain and the technological marvel that is really able to bring you 3 live buses as we drive across all of this nation, showing you everything about China, how it has changed so dramatically in the past 70 years, and really hats off to our technology department that really has been able to pull this off. But right today we're going to be focusing on agriculture in Sichuan Province. You can see the road isn't as modernized as the one we had been traveling on. We don't see the high-speed rail, we don't see the bridges at the top of the mountain, but we are making progress, and that's significant in helping the agriculture area here ship their fruits and vegetables out.
Right, so we used to be on the what's known as the Yunnan Plateau, and Sichuan is a basin. So right now we're actually going downhill. We're going to a city called Panzhihua. I think it's the only city that's named after a type of flower, a local flower. We're gonna get to see that flower this afternoon. But right now, yes, we go back to our main topic, agriculture, and joining us again is Victor Gao and Chen Jiahe. Victor, I want to continue where we left off last time about technology being used in agriculture, because look at the terrain outside of us right now. It's impossible to farm the way that people farm in the US or in Europe, the large industrial scale farming. So farming agriculture here is still relatively backward. It's what our ancestors did hundreds of years ago, just scraping a living off land.
Absolutely. I think when we talk about agriculture, it's increasingly less and less traditional agriculture as we used to understand. It's becoming industrialized agriculture. Agriculture, whatever you do, you need to have access and easy access to market, and you need to have easy access to technology, for example. And as we saw in terms of getting access to market, this is the key. And I think for Sichuan in particular, agriculture is a big business here, and it is being a basket for people in Sichuan, but also for the rest of China for thousands of years. But how to really upgrade agriculture to become more and more industrialized agriculture, modernized agriculture, that is the key. And we still see lots of mountains over here, but once we further go north into the, as you said, Sichuan plains, we see vast plains over there being irrigated by the waters from the nearby mountains, and that has been traditionally a very, very important base for the continuation of the Chinese civilizations for 2,000 to 3,000 years. And we are very proud of Sichuan. Sichuan not only has Wuchang and Panda, but also Sichuan was the birthplace of Deng Xiaoping.
Right. Deng Xiaoping, of course, being the late Chinese leader who started China's reform and opening up process 41 years ago, actually. And that's from there, China actually become the world's second economy as it is today.
And Mr. Chen, let's pick up on this, because as we drove through the mountains, we only saw small family farms. Is that what we're going to see, and how is technology helping the small family farmer?
Yeah, well, over these places where you have all the terrains, definitely you can't have large-scale farms like what we can have on plains. But the good thing for them is technology and the increment of consumption of China is actually changing the lives here. I've actually got a friend who comes from Shanghai. He now lives back in Delhi. He's making agricultural products out of the local food, and he's making millions on the internet, which is unimaginable. He was actually working in Mouding in the United States before he joined farms here. He was a financial person, but now he's making much more than what he can earn in Moody's. So it's actually because Chinese people are now consuming much better food compared with like hundreds of years ago. My dad always say your cat is actually eating nutrition much better than people had 200 years ago. So actually people are paying more and more for the food. I mean, a good egg nowadays can sell for $1, you know, these kind of things. So it's actually, they are consuming more expensive food and people here do have a chance.
Excellent.
Well, that's all from us for now. I want to go to our colleague Zhao Yunfei in Henan Province in central China.
Hey there, Xiamen and Taoyuan. Happy Mid-Autumn Festival. I don't know whether you have any mooncake, but I do have mooncake in my pocket. And it's themed in Red Jujube. We're now at the Chinese Red Jujube Park. And before we get to more details, there's a performance. This is the traditional Chinese wedding ceremony, and we're about to see the new couple quite soon. Usually in central China, people use this ritual to celebrate the new wedding. And Red Jujube, the Chinese Red Jujube, is a great icon. It means a good marriage, and it brings good fortune. This is a Chinese Red Jujube farm. Today we talk about harvest. If you learn from the history and culture, people here in central China know a lot about the jujube trees as well as its culture. And in this part, most of the trees are over 300 years old. And right behind the dancers, there are 9,000 trees like this. Once again, jujube tree has become a cultural icon of Xinzheng. And we are right about to get to the harvest part. Today is the Mid-Autumn Festival, so we see a lot of people coming in. Right behind me, there are a lot of tourists, and they are all using their cell phones and filming and shooting this wonderful moment. See how many people there are? And this is the first day of the Mid-Autumn Festival. Coming up is the harvest ceremony. Welcome, this is Zhao Yunfei live from central China's Henan Province. We welcome to the New China series, and today we're bringing you live from a Red Jujube farm. And as I just mentioned, the Red Jujube trees are part of the culture in central China's Henan Province. Today we bring you a little bit knowledge about the culture as well as a little bit knowledge about harvest over here. And just now you see the beginning ceremony of the wedding ceremony. And today, in about 1 minute or so, we will meet the new couple, and there is a ritual coming up. So hopefully I'll survive because there are a lot of layers of kind of traditions and customs I have to follow. But anyways, speaking of harvest, today we'll have a good taste of the Red Jujube and many other things, as well as a great taste of its culture. Here we go. Here are the new couples. 新婚快乐. All right. So they're aboard or many people with many good fortunes on there. So they wish me, because I'm the distinguished guest, so they wish me to pick up one to kind of make as a gift to them. So I chose this. 国泰民安, harmonious to the entire country. Here we go.
祝愿咱们的国家国泰民安。
谢谢. So I was gift. This is a bamboo pole where I will kind of hunt the red jujube really soon. 好，打枣吧。
哎，大枣嘞！来，我们一杆风调雨顺，两杆五谷丰登，三杆国泰民安喽！
Okay. 好，谢谢你们，谢谢啊。Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so what you just see is a ritual ceremony of how they kind of hunt the red jujube. I'll have staff over here to introduce. 你好，给我们介绍一下，刚才是一个什么样的一个活动？
刚才我们早上一个传统的打枣仪式，它是我们现在在枣园里面正在是我们每年常规的一项中华枣乡风情游，也就是我们好乡里的红枣文化节。然后呢，在这里呢，就是我们就可以体验到真正的就是打枣呀、收枣呀这种农事体验，让大家更深的去接触红枣文化和红枣的历史。
So this is basically a move to revitalize the red jujube culture. What you just seen is a kind of a ritual, but perhaps nowadays Chinese people no longer to follow, but to pay the respect to the tree to the god or goddess of tree, because basically this is an icon. This is the plant that give people food. So people have to pay respect. In order to pay respect, they hold this ritual, as well as red jujube is a great iconic symbol of great marriage, as well as to have more kids. So that's why we have the ritual ceremony here. 我们知道今天这个打枣的文化非常的丰富。其实为了这个就是这个枣树的存活，我们还有很多的这个种植的科技在里面，是吧？
对啊，我们可以看到我们新增的枣树啊，它的形状比较特殊，而且呢，我们这儿的枣树基本上都是300-400年的历史了。我们这儿有一个独有的管养方法，我们称之为压枣技术。也就是每年在那个5-6月份的时候呢，我们的枣农就会手持这个压枣斧呀，沿在枣的腰身沿逆时针呈品字形的砍出深浅不一的头印子，这样呢，这样的作用啊，就是为了就是养分更多的停留在上面，减少向下的输送，延长我们枣树的一个坐果率，那使结出的枣呢品质更好。
Okay, so basically this is a special technique. As you can tell, most of the trees has big bellies. So that is the result, or people use knives to carve the tree to disturb the growing of the trunk, because usually at the summer season, especially when there is a lot of rain going on, a lot of the trees will grow trunks, but most of the fruits will be disturbed. So they kind of bring some turbulence to the trunks of the tree in order to make the fruit more richful. So 谢谢，感谢您. Thank you so much. All right, so we're bringing you live from this Red Jujube Festival. Not only today we talk about the harvest, but also talk about its culture. And speaking of the Midautumn Festival, Shan and Taoyuan, hopefully you can get some mooncake to eat. I wish you will. Back to you.
3, 2. Hello from us again, still in southwest China. We've entered Sichuan Province, and the view outside the window is just absolutely gorgeous. We passed many small-scale family farms, and Mr. Victor Zhao was just telling me about the difficulties of the kind of the terrain that poses on farming in this region.
Absolutely. I think this part of China, this part of Sichuan, and the connection between Yunnan Province and Sichuan Province are known for very difficult mountains And the highway we are driving upon is not the most modernized highway. It's more traditional, but it's more or less on top of the mountain. So it gives us a very good view of the mountains surrounding us. What's encouraging is that you see wind farms on many of the mountain tops. And also you see lots of small fragmented, small family farms. And I think given the nature of the terrain over here, it dictates that you cannot do large farming, and as a result agricultural efficiency is relatively low. But this actually gives them, the local farmers, more reason why they need to have faster modernization. They need to have greater access to other parts of China. They need to have access to more capital, more technologies, and also easy access to the ultimate market.
Right.
So I think a lot of things are happening over here. And further, this part of Sichuan is traditionally the gateway to Yunnan and further down to ASEAN countries. So with China in rapid growth mode, I think this part of Sichuan will see more opportunities going forward.
And Mr. Chen, how does this fit in with the new China? The race toward modernization, get people more toward urban areas, but you still need growers.
What you can do is that they don't have to compete with how efficient this agriculture is conducted in the plain areas, because you simply can't do that. What you can do is that you can utilize the special features of agriculture here. Because Yunnan Province and Sichuan Province, they can grow very special things. Like Kunming is famous for its flowers. I asked the guy in Kunming in the flower market why Kunming is the biggest market in Asia. He said because we can grow flowers all through 4 seasons, but other countries or parts, they can't do that. So because Chinese people are now consuming better and better food, more expensive food, these kinds of things. I mean, normally an egg costs you like 0.5 yuan, but now good quality eggs can cost you 5. So they are willing to pay for good food. So this place can actually concentrate on the special food that they have, rather than compete with the efficiency that can be provided by provinces like Henan, these kind of places.
Well, Victor, we're almost out of time, but just very briefly, tell us a little bit about Panzhihua, the city that we're about to go to this afternoon.
Well, Panzhihua is a very important iron-making, steel-making city. It had a very short history, and the development of Panzhihua was because of the discovery of a very large magnetic iron ore reserve over there. And then starting in the 1960s all the way till now, special iron and special steel have been the main business in Panzhihua, and the products are widely used in, for example, high-speed railway. China uses the steel produced in Panzhihua for most of the high-speed railway rails, for example, because it requires a very high quality of steel. And that kind of steel is also widely used in defense industry, for example, in aircraft carrier deck, for example. So Panzhihua is very important. It is not only important as a commercial business, but also it's very much part of China's defense industry, in a sense.
So a lot to look forward to, because the city is also undergoing a huge transformation right now as China tries to cut capacity for iron and steel production. But Sean, do you have anything to look forward to for this afternoon?
Absolutely. I think when we look toward the diversity of this nation, I've been to the Northeast, I've been to the Southeast, so it's great to see what this is going to be like, and now to pick up more about this diversity and this whole new China adventure. Let's go to our colleagues in the Southeast, Genhua and Libby.
Professor.
Yeah, we're going to see Professor John.
No.
Thank you so much, Sean and Tao Yuan, and a happy mid-autumn day to you guys there in the southwest. Of course, we are in the southeast, and it is a beautiful day. We've entered into Fujian Province on a really wonderfully warm day. It's very green outside, as you can probably see. The sky is blue, clouds in sight, but it is absolutely lovely. Of course, we're making our way to Xiamen on this mid-autumn day. A very special day, I understand, and let's bring in my co-host, Junhua, to tell us more about Mid-Autumn Day and why it's also known as Mooncake Day.
That's right, Lindy. Yeah, now you can see our bus, and we are in this house. We were sitting here talking about Mooncake Festival. As its name suggests, it's Midautumn Day, so the time is usually in the middle of autumn. Also Mooncake Festival, because on this particular day we're going to have some mooncakes and also a time for family reunion. Of course, our guests will talk more about the history and the origin of this particular festival.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, you may have noticed that we do have a new guest with us today. So let's go ahead and introduce the familiar face that all of you who have been following our journey will know by now. We are, of course, with Andy Mock, who is the Senior Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization, and the new member of our team, Professor John Gong from the University of International Business and Economics. As always, a warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
You've always been treating us with these fantastic historical treasures. Your knowledge is so vast and deep, and I'm sure you have an awesome story to share about Mid-Autumn Day.
Well, I do have a story I can tell you guys and our audience about Mid-Autumn Festival. But first of all, maybe just a little bit of context. This is one of the most important holidays for Chinese all around the world. And if you're familiar with the American holiday of Thanksgiving, it's quite like Thanksgiving in that it's a time when families get together to give thanks. And why does it take place at this time? First of all, in China, even today, many people use what's called the lunar calendar versus the Gregorian calendar. And this, Lindy, as you were saying, takes place exactly in the middle of autumn. And China has been an agrarian society for thousands of years. So this is a time to celebrate the harvest, but also to express hopes for a good future harvest as well. And it's an incredibly important family holiday where people get together just like Thanksgiving in the United States.
Fantastic. John, you were saying that it's kind of celebrated differently in different parts of the country.
Yeah, well, this area is in English we call it Hokklo area, and these are the referring to the southern Fujian province. It's a very culturally rich region, and I think in terms of celebrating the Mid-Autumn Day, they have a special way of serving the mooncakes. So I think the people here has a very rich history. They also migrate to other regions of Asia as well. So I think this area has a very large population of overseas diaspora. They spread their culture, they spread their language. The Hokkien language itself is spoken by up to something like 40 to 50 million people throughout throughout Southeast Asia, in Taiwan, in Singapore. 70% of the population in Singapore can understand this dialect, and also it's spoken in Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. So this area is probably, in my view, is probably the most influential area from China in Southeast Asia. So I think this is very unique. I'm so glad touring this area. Is incredibly beautiful, very hilly, but it's not as mountainous as in our the people or group in the southwest route. But I think it's equally, if not more, beautiful and the scenery.
Well,
absolutely.
We certainly think we're on the best route to do.
On that note, and then you say that people here, especially the Hokkien culture, I think they're more family oriented, right? And then they would definitely celebrate this festival, especially in Taiwan. That's the Hokkien culture as well. Right. That's a big family reunion, right? So, Andy, I know that you have the background of Canton. So, how is that celebrated, especially in the Cantonese community, probably in the US?
Yeah, well, John was saying about the impact of Hokkien culture all around the world, and it's not just in Southeast Asia, but certainly in the United States as well. And I think people from this part of China really tend to hold to their traditions, and of course one of them is mooncakes as a way of celebrating Mid-Autumn Festival, having a big meal together as well, getting together, looking at the moon, because it's also the full moon. This also helps determine when the festival is actually held. So every year on the Gregorian calendar, it can be a different time, but it's always when the moon is full. And one of the most enjoyable and I would say evocative parts of the holiday from a traditional sense is looking at the moon. So hopefully there'll be a clear sky and we can all look at the full moon tonight.
Yeah, you know, in the traditional Chinese culture, we do have this worship of the moon, right? If it's round and it means unity or something.
Yeah.
So, Lindy, in your part of the world, in South Africa, do you have anything that's similar to the Mooncake Festival that we celebrate here?
I wouldn't say so, no. I mean, it's a good question, but I don't think there's anything. I think there are sort of special ways of honoring the harvest. Celebrating, you know, sort of the people that work the land and celebrating their new harvest. But I don't think there's anything that's national in the way that this Midautumn Festival is, especially with something as symbolic as the mooncake itself. I mean, which I'm sure too has its own unique history, the actual cake.
Absolutely. So, you know, everyone probably may not have tasted mooncakes, but certainly have seen them. And some of them are round, some of them are square. But what's the tradition of mooncakes actually started in the Tang Dynasty. So one of the most famous dynasties, and many stories and folk tales about mooncakes. But I'll share one with you guys and our audience that just happens to be true. And right at the end of the Yuan dynasty, which is when the Mongols conquered China, the first emperor of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Yuan, Zhang, led the uprising to overthrow the Yuan to establish the Ming dynasty. And at that time, of course, there were no cell phones, there were not even telephones. So how could you coordinate and let everyone know when should the uprising occur? So the Yuan rulers were very strict in restricting how people could communicate. So the founder of the Ming dynasty, the first emperor, had an idea. He said, what if I put these messages in the mooncakes?
Okay.
And it turned out to be phenomenally successful, and that's what led to the establishment of the Ming dynasty, one of the most famous dynasties in all of Chinese history.
That's incredible. The humble mooncake played a very
humble
big role.
Mooncakes can be weaponized.
Weaponizing mooncakes.
But this, of course, brings to mind, and I can't wait for us to finally taste mooncakes later today. But I understand that they're quite rich in terms of the flavor, and so they have to be accompanied perhaps with a cup of tea. And Fujian Province, very well known for its tea production, am I right?
Oh yeah, it's an area that has a very large tea production. There are a couple of very unique teas. I think one is called Guanyin, right? It's produced locally here. I think it has a lot to do with this terrain. You know, it's kind of a hilly and mountainous area, and it's very suitable for planting tea. And I also want to mention that historically, this area, due to its sort of very hilly and mountainous terrain, it's kind of a little bit isolated. So the transport of tea out of this region has been quite difficult. But ever since the development of the e-commerce, I know stories of Alibaba, for example, cooperating with the local governments, and what they did is to go into different villages, and the whole village became a tea producing village, and it became a quite influential brand in that particular tea. So this whole village can be sort of got out of the poverty and does wonderful things for the local economy.
So what I mean is it has become part of the efforts for China's poverty alleviation, right? Yeah, for the tea. I mean, it has become part of the efforts of China's measures, or China's efforts to get people out of poverty.
Exactly. E-commerce plus a very interesting local products can combine them together can be a wonderful way of getting people out of poverty. As a matter of fact, I know Alibaba is also expanding this business model in your hometown, or in your homeland. They're doing this in East Africa. They're set up in Nairobi. They also, I think they're doing this in a big way in Rwanda.
All around the world.
They're trying to sell Rwanda coffee here in China. So people never heard of Rwanda coffee. Now Rwanda coffee has gradually become sort of a name brand here in China. So I think this model, business model, is incredibly successful.
It's incredible the journey that Chinese tea has taken across the world. In fact, I was just thinking of a time when we were reporting from Mauritania, and in the desert of Mauritania, people drink a lot of tea. It's very, very, very sweet, and they're poured in these cups. It's a bit of a ceremony, but they drink at least 5, 6, 7 cups a day very easily. Yeah. And I learned during the process of this reporting trip that they were drinking green tea. And I kept on wondering, where does green tea grow in Mauritania? And it turns out they'd actually imported it from China. And this is what's,
tea is a lot like wine in that there's various kinds of tea, different flavors, and where it's grown actually has a big impact. So just like we have Bordeaux wine, Burgundy wine.
Yes.
Similarly, we have Pu'er, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things, oolong, of course. But one of the things I think is very interesting is we just left Chaoshan, and Chaoshan is known for their particular kind of tea, gongfu cha, which is gongfu like kung fu, the martial art. But people call this the espresso of tea because you drink them in very, very tiny cups, and it's very, very strong.
Yeah.
And what's really great about this kind of tea is, we were talking about mooncakes, and they're very, very rich. So it's a little bit like the French foie, the goose liver,
Yeah.
and you want to have something to complement it, to take away or to balance the richness. And I personally think like Pu'er is a great tea which comes from Yunnan as a good one for eating with mooncakes.
And tea for tonight?
We'll see. We'll see.
Or wine.
See, Lindy and I are
So it's like
thinking
cigar,
alike.
it's just like cigar and wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely we'll have some mooncakes tonight.
Yeah,
And
for
probably
sure.
some pu'er tea to get rid of the richness of it, right?
For sure. And of course, I've been really excited about getting into Fujian Province and going specifically to Xiamen because I've read so many amazing things about it, about what the city is today. It's been called like the new cool city of China. It's got a very hipster energy, I've read, with bicycle paths and craft beer and art galleries. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure all of you have a bit more experience and understanding of it than I do, but perhaps you could share with me the journey that Xiamen has traveled, its significance in the past and where it is today.
Well, Xiamen is a very important. I think it's the second or the largest city in Fujian Province.
Okay.
It's famous for its commercial center, and also it is famous for its connection with Taiwan, especially this Cayman Island, which is now still under the Taiwanese administration. It's right next to Xiamen. And Xiamen is also historically a very important port. The little island we're going to visit later on today,
Yes.
the Gulangyu Island,
Yeah.
used to be one of the most important earlier port cities when China was first opened up. Facing the west, coming into China, so I think this city is very important. It's also a very livable city. I'm trying to think about what is the equivalent of the city in the United States that is famous for its very livable. Probably
Maybe what's the one in San Francisco?
Well, I think about like maybe the Bay Area
Yeah.
in the U.S.
Okay.
Silicon Valley, San Francisco, just because of the environment. It's very comfortable.
Yeah.
It attracts people that are more creative and looking for a more relaxed lifestyle. Which is different from the Tier 1 cities like the Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen.
But some of these cities like Portland, say for instance, or even in South Africa, where I come from, certain parts of Johannesburg have been gentrified. They were perhaps doing quite badly at a particular time, but investors have come in, made those sections of the city quite amazing. But the downside is that it outprices a lot of people. It becomes expensive to live there.
I think Xiamen, relatively speaking, is still quite affordable compared to cities like in Shanghai and Beijing. Definitely, it's affordable. I know University of Xiamen is attracting talents, and one of the attractions advantages they've been advertising is that more affordable housing compared to the first-tier cities in Beijing and Shanghai.
But John, I think you've been in Beijing too long because what I've heard is that Xiamen actually, for this region, actually the real estate prices are quite expensive. But what's happening though is you look at places like Quanzhou or Xinzheng, which used to be relatively far away from Xiamen, but because of the high-speed rail, now it only takes about 20 minutes by high-speed rail. So many people from Xiamen are moving to places like Xinzheng because it's more affordable. But I think you're right, compared to Beijing, Xiamen still is not that.
I'm really impressed that you know so much about China. You know more about China than I do. Huh?
Yeah, Xiamen used to be part of Quanzhou.
Well, it's all kind of like one rough.
Quanzhou is a little bit north to Xiamen. Quanzhou is also one of the very important port cities. As a matter of fact, Quanzhou used to be at one point used to be the largest port during like the Ming Dynasty, the largest port in the world actually. So it's the commerce between the Arabs and China. I think in the 1200 DC, during that time, sorry, AD. During that time, the Quanzhou city is a thriving city.
That's still Fujian Province, Chenzhou.
It's north of Xiamen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be day 6 for us. We're going
we're going to visit that. We're going to visit
that's
that
the
city.
start of the maritime Silk Road for Chenzhou.
But to add a little more of the history to this, but you're right, John. I mean, Chenzhou was a very, very important port. But Xiamen was once called Amoy because under the with the opening, it was one of the treaty ports as well. So also, which helped make it such an important port and such an important commercial center for this part of China.
That's fascinating indeed. Really.
So a lot of history.
You know this very important person, Mr. Zheng He, right? He led
Admiral Zheng He.
Yeah, Admiral Zheng He. He led 7 expeditions into the Indian Ocean, even reached as far as the Lamu Island in Kenya.
This is the one
And he left
China.
His base in China for these expeditions was exactly in Shenzhou. So it was a
that legacy is still quite strong. I think if you go to Nairobi, well, as you all know, the SGR, the Standard Gauge Railway, was built by China. And when you travel from Nairobi to Mombasa, as you arrive, there's a statue of him there, actually, just to sort of continue that legacy.
There was a shipwreckage, and some sailors swam ashore, and they left behind forever. And there was I know there's a little girl several years ago who claimed that yes, it's the Chinese heritage, and she did a DNA test, and it was verified. And the Chinese government immediately offered a scholarship, bring her to China to study medicine. I think she went back to Kenya now. It was an amazing story.
That is all we have for today. Okay, I'm afraid we're running out of time. I think that is all we have for today. So we were talking about Mooncake Festival, and from there we moved on to tea and also a little bit history lessons. Once again about Xiamen and Chenzhou and the maritime Silk Roads and everything related. So back to you, Sean and Yuan. Of course, happy Midautumn Day. Take it over.
Thanks, Zhenhua and Lindy. Nice look at the southeast as we continue our adventure. New China, looking at all the changes, the modernization, the past of this nation as it begins to celebrate its 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China coming up on October 1st. And we have left the main road. We are off the beaten path now.
We're off the beaten path, still tucked away in the mountains, but we just are past this little township, and with us again is Mr. Victor Gao and Mr. Chen Jiahe. Victor, you were just telling me as we passed that little township that's what you grew up with, that's what you're used to seeing. It's so different from modern China. But I mean, people in China still associate the villages with poverty, but there's also a huge poverty reduction plan going on, not to mention the rural revitalization plan. What kind of potential do you think we're talking about here in China's remote villages?
Well, whatever I saw just now reminds me of a real truth that has prevailed in China. That is, we always say, if you really want to become rich, build a road. And the road we are here is not bad, but it's not the most sophisticated, the modernized version. And we just now passed signs where the high-speed railways are being constructed, probably linking Sichuan directly with Yunnan. And in China, a rule of thumb is that each of the local governments would come to Beijing and ask the central government to support for the high-speed railway to pass through their town or city or their localities, for example. Why? Because many people in China believe if you can have a better connectivity, it's a sure recipe for
wealth,
prosperity, and for improvement of the living standards of the people. And we see exactly the signs and evidence of that. And I'm sure that in a few days' time, with the high-speed railway connectivity being completed between Sichuan, Panzhihua, for example, with Yunnan, this part of Sichuan will gain speed in development, and farmers, for example, can have much easier access to their market, to technologies, to capitals, etc., and to new way of farming. And also the goods that they are producing here, including mango in Panzhihua, and also the special steel that they produce, can actually reach further markets for higher value.
And Mr. Chen, as we close in on Panzhihua, it's a city in transition. Tell me what's going on, because we're really looking at agriculture on this day as we enter Sichuan Province.
the name of Panzhihua actually means a kind of flower, and the reason why that city was named, well, this is a very, very young city, only for tens of years. The reason that this city was named under a flower is because at the time it was building a city as the discovery of the iron ore there. It was only a village, and there is a flower in front of the village, so that's the name of the city that can now have a population about 1 million. So the city is actually transferring from one area is that they're no longer producing or relying on the production of normal steel products. They are going to the specialized steel made for special purposes. And another thing is that it's actually transforming into a local hub for local economies like consumption, trade between Sichuan and Yunnan Province and ASEAN countries, these kinds of things, and local things like hospitals, stuff like that. So when the Chinese economy is growing on overall growing, this kind of city as a center of a region is having more and more roles to serve the local economy.
Thank you again, gentlemen.
Thank
but
you.
before we leave you, though, today is actually the Midautumn Festival in China. Traditionally, it's for family members to gather together and look at the moon. So we actually took the liberty of buying some of these moon cakes and giving them to our wonderful guests who have
Since you
been
can't be with your
us.
families today.
All right, thank you. Thank you
We'll
for
be
that.
with our work
Thank you.
family.
Thank you. Let's share this with all our global audience. I hope this will be enough for our spiritual consumption.
And in the spirit of full disclosure, though, those actually came from our wonderful crew. It's not like we're that kind that we can think. You see, it's a good thing we have wonderful people with us that are able to help us along. Thank you.
Exactly,
Happy Moon
exactly.
Festival.
To those of you watching there, happy Mid-Autumn Festival and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
In 70 years, China has undergone unprecedented transformation. From its old industrial base in the northeast to its new manufacturing powerhouse in the southeast and to its emerging southwest. CGTN offers you a panoramic view of contemporary China. Our crews will travel along 3 different routes and come to you live from dozens of locations and free mobile studios. Join us for an all-inclusive look at China on our TV channel and digital platforms, September the 9th to the 20th. It is New China, then and now, in celebration of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, only on CGTN.